Right. Time to go to the altar and see what important thing we're going to get now. And of course, that sparked a boss fight. Why wouldn't it? Well, I doubt this guy has the same gimmick as the random encounters, so he shouldn't be too much of a problem, though maybe I've just gained some arrogance after all the trouble we had to go through just to get this far. At the very least, this bastard hits incredibly hard. Seriously, over 1,000 in damage in a single blow? Is that sort of bullshit that makes me feel as if armor isn't actually worth a damn around here. Right. So Brett is down. Apparently wearing Dark Knight armor doesn't make him any more durable than he was as a black belt. And of course our healing spell didn't land quickly enough to do anything for him. Because when we give orders in this game, the original Final Fantasy and in Final Fantasy II, there is absolutely nothing to indicate who goes in what order at all. And great. If he does another earthquake spell, then 2 of our team are gonna be knocked out by it. And this time, Midori gets a spell out before anyone else does anything? Not that it really mattered since the boss was taken down in the absolute next strike, but dear God. This is the 3rd Final Fantasy game I've Let's Played. Why do I still wish the enemies had health bars that we could see? You'd think I'd have gotten used to not having that by now. The end of every fight feels abrupt no matter how long they go, and it can be damn tough to tell if you're doing well, though you can easily tell when you're doing poorly. Anyway, it's time to leave this dungeon behind. I suppose I'm thankful that we did get teleported out the instant we got what we came for, though now we have to fight our way through plenty of those respawning bastards again. After the amount of trouble we had to fight our way through, I certainly hope we've gotten strong enough to take on Odin and win this time. Hell, doing that feels like more of a priority to me than actually getting on to the next bit of story. Maybe I took all those off-screen losses more personally than I thought. It's definitely not like I'm doing it for the sake of gaining the ability to summon Odin, after all. I am absolutely never going to put a summoner on our team in this game. Again, considering the fact that summoners are kinda story important in Final Fantasy IV, and summons are incredibly important in Final Fantasy VI, 9, and 10. It's funny that I do not generally think too much about summons. Hell, Bahamut has been in this series longer than any other recurringly named thing in the franchise. Or at least the only individual being that has had the same name since the absolute first game, since there are some random encounters all the way back then that occasionally pop up in other games. Cid apparently became a recurring character named in Final Fantasy II, the one that I'm damn glad I skipped over. And according to the internet, Final Fantasy III, the one we're currently working on, is the debut of Shiva, Ifrit, Rama, Titan, Odin, and Leviathan. Definitely interesting to see how much of what became Absolute Series mainstays came about very early in the franchise's history. It's just such a shame that the only one of the original 3 games in the series that I absolutely love to keep returning to and playing for the hell of it is the absolute first Final Fantasy. I was willing to go through 3 partly because of the many storytelling decisions in 4 kind of annoyed the crap out of me, so I wanted to go back to something that had a more basic, bare-bones tale to tell, and didn't throw so many false deaths and poor attempts at drama at us. And partly because 5 also lets you change classes as you play, so I wanted to see how much it was done this first time, so we'd be able to see how much they had to improve for the 5th game. And also, partly I was curious how going through this game would actually feel. In all honesty, among the Final Fantasy games that I've actually played from beginning to end over the years, this one kind of feels like the worst to me. There is no getting around that. It's good enough mechanically for me to be willing to go through it from beginning to end. and it definitely feels like they had some good ideas in the mix here. But there's no getting around the fact that I like Final Fantasy 1, 4, and 5 better than 3, and comparing it to the likes of 6, 7, 9, 10, or even 12 feels unfair as hell. With the exception of 12, the other games that I mentioned there are absolute masterpieces according to anyone who played them, and I certainly agree with that statement. And I'm definitely looking forward to when I finally get around to working on the outright masterpieces. But first we have to finish off this game, then deal with the pretty damn good Final Fantasy V after. Huh. I was not expecting to see that Carmine's job level is 61. I suppose it makes sense that the job levels go up faster than the actual main level, but... Bloody hell, this dungeon certainly has done a great job of wearing down our supplies. And again, this is not the final dungeon, when the game is going to become as big of a grind as it can possibly get away with. The final dungeon is going to be even worse than this. Excuse me for treading when we finally get there. Well, it makes sense that Azul is at 91 for his class. He's stayed that same class for most of the damn game. Probably a good hint that I should consider changing his class at some point, since he's been that class for the longest amount of time compared to everyone else. But there are just not any magic classes that can outdo the basic black mage or white mage, at least as far as I know, this deep into the game. Well, I suppose I can't complain too much about the encounter rate here, but when I already said that I appreciate going through random encounters because that's a good way to help us prepare for future fights. Though it is funny when I'm more annoyed dealing with the random encounters than the boss at the end of the dungeon. Well, if nothing else, the Hanyel monster looks better than the Valefor ones. Sure, they both look pretty generic and don't look especially good in the color green. Still, the wormy ones at least look like something that's supposed to be genuinely weird and off-putting. Have I talked about that before? Seriously, I don't remember talking about the appearance of these specific monsters at this point in the game, and I think I've said it plenty of times, though, that I just don't like the monster design for the majority of Final Fantasy III, and there are very few exceptions. Exceptions that I can't really think of off the top of my head at the moment, and I'm not about to go check the earlier clips in this Let's Play to double-check what very few enemy designs I actually liked around here. The class looks for all the things that we can play as, those all look good, but suffice to say, this game is certainly not remembered fondly for the enemies we deal with. It is known for being a game that expanded on the class system that the original game introduced. Anyway, seems we've gone from fighting green foes to orange ones, for whatever that's worth. Good God, we're still 3 floors away from the exit. Why? Just why did they make this dungeon so massive? Well, at least the second floor is mercifully short. And we're back to dealing with green enemies, because for some reason, the random encounters like us to deal with a very specific combination of enemies far more often than the others. And that does it. We're done with this dungeon, and I very much doubt we're ever gonna have to come back to it ever again, which is good news. Well, we've certainly got a lot of potions and high potions now. Hopefully that means we're ready for the next dungeon, whatever that's gonna be. Though we're going to need the submersible again, since we're going to try to fight against Odin again next. I certainly hope we've improved enough to take him on more for the sake of proving we can take on that boss, rather than because we're going to gain any actual rewards I'll be able to use once we fight him. It's funny how little I actually care about the artillery support we get with this airship, because I've gone through so many clips of flying around with no random encounters in the air in this same damn game. So the artillery barrage against those random enemies doesn't feel like the relief that it was probably meant to be. It's just telling me this far into the game that some of the rules don't mean a damn thing. And many of those rules are just so utterly arbitrary anyway, so now I'm wondering, what are the rules the game is gonna break as we get closer and closer to the ending just to throw us off? Hopefully not too many. The mechanics of this game are already annoying enough, but maybe that's just me. Well, we've made it out of that annoying little maze. Now to get back to the place where we parked the airship that can go underwater. It's actually pretty weird that I prefer the upgrade to an airship over the newer airship's gimmick. Not that there's too many more uses for going underwater now that we're done with the vast majority of the underwater dungeons. This is just me doing a bit of cleanup. Right, back in the catacombs that lead to Odin. Now to just work our way to him. At the very least, this dungeon is going to be far less of a pain in the ass. Certainly no need to worry about any enemies that spawn fresh foes if you don't kill them or use a special weapon to strike them. Again, while I do appreciate the fact that there are some foes in this game that force you to think things through, it would have been better if it wasn't a case of the game absolutely tailoring things for very specific party configurations. It's just so strange that the original Final Fantasy did a better job of designing things in a case of any party makeup, but this game made the expanded freedom of choice more of a mental trap than something to really have fun with, in my opinion at least. Well, we certainly did a hell of a lot more damage to Odin than he did to us. Not really a promising sign considering some of the attacks he has in reserve, but I certainly wouldn't mind seeing more of that as this fight goes on. Yeah, probably gonna need to use a high potion on Azul, not just a cure spell. Again, it's pretty weird that it feels like our armor values don't actually mean much of anything around here. You'd think this far into the game I'd get used to it, but no. Regardless of armor, it feels like all that really matters in terms of negating damage is if you're in the front or back row. And great, now I'm wondering why it is that Carmine's not hitting them with 4-digit damage anymore. Sure, everyone's hits are landing a bit weaker than they were compared to the first round for some reason, but Carmine's hits are more worryingly weaker. Huh. Well, nice to know that was the end of the fight. Kind of wish I could feel more proud of our win there, especially considering how much trouble Odin gave us earlier. But even leveling up just doesn't feel like it means much in this game for some reason. I'm sure this helped prepare us for future fights, but it's not really all that tangible. Wait, why is this summon spell named Catastro? Why not literally list it as Odin when you're gonna be summoning Odin? Ah well, I suppose being able to take down Odin is a good sign that we're improving and getting stronger despite my various feelings. Hopefully that means we won't have too much trouble against some of the other bosses that we're likely to come up against as we keep pushing forward, but with the way this game just makes you have to use specific classes sometimes, I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, once we're out of here, we're gonna save, and that should be enough for one clip. The next bit of raw footage, I'm pretty sure I won't be able to fit into a single clip even if I fast forward it quite a lot. Hopefully that means there's some good progress in that bit of raw footage to make the length worth it. Huh. Guess I just prefer to go to stores instead of using the vending machines on our ship for some reason.